So, after the financial powers of the parliament, let us discuss about the other powers. So, these are very limited in number. So, let us see what are the other powers of the parliament, like altering the names of a state, creation of new states, merging and separating territories and boundaries of a state. That means if any state needs change of name, so or if any new state is to be created, or if any two states are to be merged, or if their boundaries are to be changed, or if they have to extend the boundaries, or if they have to merge the boundaries, or if they want to change the territorial things, then the power is with the parliament. And then comes the parliament can also make laws on composition, jurisdiction and power of Supreme Court. That means usually there will be a Chief Justice and not more than 30 judges in Supreme Court. In case if the Supreme Court has workload more and it needs an extra judges, then by an act of parliament these extra judges can be provided to Supreme Court. That means the parliament can make laws on its composition, jurisdiction and powers of Supreme Court. That means if sometimes if the Supreme Court tries to intervene with the government, the parliament by different laws it will try to you know change or bring in some changes with the jurisdiction of Supreme Court, including the powers of it. And the parliament can also establish a common high court for two or more states. That means based on the necessity, based on the area covered by the state, the parliament can decide whether it can have a common high court or two or more, for two or more states. So this is about the powers of the parliament. So the later concept is about the control of parliament over the executive. So how does the parliament control the executive? So here the word executive means people who work in the implementation of the policies of the government. So before knowing how the parliament controls the executive, let us try to learn who are involved in the union executive or the central executive. So in the union executive, the highest executive head is president, later comes the vice president, and then comes the prime minister and his council of ministers, and last but not least, the attorney general of India. So you might be aware of all the above persons like president, vice president, prime minister, council of minister. But who is this attorney general of India? So attorney general of India is the highest legal authority of the government, and he serves the central government on all legal issues. So he is the highest legal advisor or the lawyer you can call for the union executive. After knowing who are the part of executive in the union government, so let us see how the executive role of government is having a control. So if a government acts against the constitutional provisions, that means if the government tries to make laws or bring some decisions which are constitutionally not valid, then during such time the constitutional to protect the constitutional provisions, the opposition will use the no confidence motion, and it will try to restrict the government from doing such unconstitutional or extra constitutional works. And if this vote of no confidence is passed in parliament, then the whole ministry including the prime minister has to resign. That means the government is deemed to be dissolved. That means the government will resign or it will become unfunctional or non-functional. And then other tool is question hour. So as you know that this is the very beginning hour of the sessions of parliament, where it will give a very good opportunity for the opposition members to ask number of questions in various formats, so that the ministers in the government will try to answer to the parliament, which is nothing but having a control. That means if the government is doing any injustice things or non-justiciable things, then the opposition can use the question hour to ask a number of questions, so that it will try to control the ministers and the government by not doing any wrong things. And the parliamentary committee on public accounts. See, the parliamentary committees, like there will be various committees in parliament. Among them, public accounts committee is very one such important committee. So this committee will generally monitor the will generally monitor the government's expenditure on public, and it also reports, or it also examines the reports of Comptroller and Auditor General of India. The Comptroller and Auditor General of India will generally examine the will be generally functioning for auditing all the accounts of the central and state governments. So here let us stick with the central government. So once the Comptroller and Auditor General finishes his auditing, then the Parliament will go through, especially this Public Accounts Committee will go through this auditing reports, and they will try to control the government if there are something going wrong. And adjournment motion is one other tool to control the executive role of the government, where that the opposition leaders can bring an important issue by setting aside all other things in the sessions of parliament, so that the government will be controlled to discuss about the most happening issues at that point of time. And there is also one more motion called censure motion. Censure motion is different from adjournment motion or no confidence motion, because censure motion can be introduced only to a minister or a group of ministers, but in this motion there is no such provision of dissolving or resignation of ministers. If a censure motion is introduced in parliament and gets adopted, it will try to highlight the ministers' inefficiency in performing their duties. Suppose if a minister or group of ministers fails in performing their duties, censure motion will expose them. And it is not like no confidence motion where the ministry will get dissolved. And rejection of a bill is also a very important thing, where it will be essential, it will be useful for expressing the dissatisfaction of the government. And private members bill introduction is also one way of expressing the dissatisfaction and control over the executive role of government. So now let us understand the exclusive powers of Lok Sabha. So what do you mean by the word exclusive here? That means it is very much specific related to Lok Sabha. And what are those powers which are specifically only related to or only relied with Lok Sabha? So let us see what are those exclusive powers. One is motion of no confidence. This motion of no confidence, as we have earlier said, that where there is a chance of government getting dissolved if it gets passed, such an important motion. So this motion of no confidence can be introduced only in Lok Sabha. It cannot be introduced in Rajya Sabha. And thus Lok Sabha exercises more control on the executive role of government, with having motion of no confidence as a very important tool or device. And then coming to the money bills. So money bills are nothing but a bill which includes expenditure of money. So such bills are called money bills in symbol. And these kind of money bills can be introduced only in Lok Sabha, but they cannot be introduced in Rajya Sabha like ordinary bills. And these money bills, once they are passed in Lok Sabha and sent to Rajya Sabha can delay these money bills only up to a 14-day period, and it cannot hold these money bills more than 14 days. Even if it holds, the money bill gets automatically passed and it can be done by the Lok Sabha itself. That means the Lok Sabha has a greater control over money bills. And in case of deadlock between two houses over financial bill, that means over non-financial bill, that means, see, in case of money bills, definitely Lok Sabha will have a greater say or will have a greater control than Rajya Sabha, because Lok Sabha is having representatives directly elected by people. So it depends, like it is more related with people's things. And here, in case of deadlock between two houses over non-financial bills, that means ordinary bills, in such bills, in such cases, both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha will have equal control. But when there is a tie between both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha over non-money bills or non-financial bills, then the president will summon joint sitting of both the houses. When both houses sit together and try to resolve the deadlock over this non-financial bills or non-money bills, even then the Lok Sabha will try to dominate, because numerically the strength of Lok Sabha will be more, and when the during the joint session over the non-financial bill, if voting occurs at the end, due to its numerical strength, Lok Sabha will try to you know dominate, and its strength will prevail or its say will prevail. So these are the exclusive powers of Lok Sabha. So now let us discuss about the exclusive powers of Rajya Sabha. Like Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha even possesses certain powers exclusively to itself. That means these kind of powers are not with the Lok Sabha. Let us see what are those exclusive powers of Rajya Sabha. The Rajya Sabha can declare any subject in the state list as a subject of national interest, empowering the parliament to legislate on it. That means, generally, you have studied already, there are three kinds of lists in which the powers to make laws are already divided. They are union list, state list, and concurrent list. In union list, the central government will make laws. In state list, the state governments will make laws. In concurrent list, both governments has the power to make laws. And here, the Rajya Sabha, being the representative of Council of States, by passing two-third majority in Rajya Sabha, the Rajya Sabha is empowered to declare any subject in the state list as of national importance, and it can make law on it. That means any subject belonging to state list can be taken up by Rajya Sabha, and there the Rajya Sabha, which is representative of Council of States, will say that this particular state subject is having national importance, and it can empower the parliament to make law. That means state list can be taken and can be made laws by Rajya Sabha with a two-third majority passing in Rajya Sabha. And Rajya Sabha also has the power to set up new All India services required for both union and states. And like Indian Administrative Service, Foreign Service, these are the general services. If it feels that it wanted to create another new All India service, it can create. And Rajya Sabha is a permanent house. It cannot be dissolved like Lok Sabha. Lok Sabha dissolves every 5 years in general, and later it gets freshly elected. But Rajya Sabha, it is not like that. It's a permanent house which where the members will enjoy a term of 6 years, and every 2 years they get retired and they continue the house without any dissolve. So after learning the exclusive powers of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, then let us proceed towards what is the relationship between both houses of parliament and their differences. Coming to the relationship, as we have studied earlier that both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, which are the two houses of parliament, they are not competitive centers or they are not competing bodies against each other, but they are co-partners in the process of legislative making and giving a good governance to the country. So this is how they are supposed to collaboratively work. That means come together and work more effectively. But in spite of that, Lok Sabha is having a higher authority and power, where the Lok Sabha members are elected directly and the Rajya Sabha members are elected indirectly by the MLAs of state, whereas Lok Sabha members are directly elected by people in every state, and later they will be functioning from the Lok Sabha. Whereas Rajya Sabha, the MLAs of many political parties, they vote and they will send to Rajya Sabha. Coming to the differences, with regard to ordinary bills, they can originate in any house. So that means if a bill has to be introduced, an ordinary bill where the expenditure of money and all are not involved, and during such bills it can arise in any of the house, and if deadlock arises between both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha over these ordinary bills, then a joint sitting of the parliament will be held, and this joint sitting is again presided over by Speaker of Lok Sabha in the central hall of Parliament, and due to its numerical strength, Lok Sabha decisions will generally prevail in such joint sittings. This is a very major difference between Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. And in case of money bills, if you talk about money bills, there is no authority for Rajya Sabha to decide on that, because Lok Sabha is directly having representatives elected by people, so they have a greater authority to take decision on money bills. As a formality, these money bills will be sent to Rajya Sabha, but within 14 days the Rajya Sabha should send it back. If not sent also, they are automatically they'll be passed, and they'll become into they'll come into action. And sometimes the Lok Sabha may accept recommendations of Rajya Sabha in such money bills, but it is not compulsion for it. It may also reject such recommendation. And in control over the executive, as we have studied just now, Lok Sabha is more powerful because the ministers who are representing the government are completely responsible to Lok Sabha. They are not responsible to Rajya Sabha. The ministers may get elected from either Rajya Sabha or Lok Sabha. That means the minister can be a Rajya Sabha member or Lok Sabha member. But this minister can go to any house and he can involve in the government proceedings. But he cannot but he can only vote from the house which he came from. Suppose if a Rajya Sabha member becomes a minister, he can go to both houses and he can involve in government proceedings, but he cannot vote in Lok Sabha. Suppose if a member becomes a minister from Lok Sabha, and he can go to both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, but he cannot vote in Rajya Sabha. So finally, as these ministers are responsible to Lok Sabha more, then the Rajya Sabha has a very little control over the executive compared to Lok Sabha. Continuing with our relation and differences between the houses of parliament, let us understand that Lok Sabha, due to its numerical majority, has a greater say in the election of president and vice president. That means, see, the president and vice president are elected by an electoral college. So we'll study this election in detail in now coming chapters, but I'll give you an overview. See, they are elected separately by an electoral college, not by the citizens of this country. So if you compare president and vice president election, in president election, both Lok Sabha members and Rajya Sabha members will involve. And if you take president election, along with Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha members, the state legislative members, that means the MLAs, are also involved in a different way. They'll count the number of MLAs and they will give a voting for that. Whereas in case of vice president, the state MLAs are not taken into consideration. Only the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha members will together elect the vice president. So as Lok Sabha is having more more members, and numerically they are more, they have a greater say, or they have a greater authority over electing these constitutional posts called president and vice president. And in the impeachment of president, or the Supreme Court Chief Justice or judges of High Court and Supreme Court, then they have equal powers. That means in the impeachment of president, as we have already seen, you can go through that slide again, where it initially starts in any of the house, later it goes to a house where 2/3 resolution has to be passed, later the other house will turn into investigation house. Here both houses have equal power in removal of president. The same thing is applicable to the Supreme Court and High Court Chief Justice and judges. Hence there is a very close relation in this impeachment and removal process of President, Supreme Court and High Court Chief Justice and judges. And in case of a national emergency, this is a very peculiar case, please listen carefully. In case of a national emergency, and if Lok Sabha is dissolved, Rajya Sabha, the permanent house, takes over all the responsibilities of Union Legislature. That means, for example, consider that a national emergency has been declared by a government in Lok Sabha. Now what happens? And after the declaration of national emergency, for example, if the government gets dissolved, then what happens is the Rajya Sabha, which is the permanent house, will take up all the responsibility of the union legislature. As there is no government as well as emergency is in imposing, then there must be somebody. Once government is dissolved and emergency is in operation, who will take care of the country? At this point of time, the Rajya Sabha, which is a permanent house, will take over all the responsibilities of union legislature. So this is about the chapter Union Legislature.